In any relationship, the better we communicate, the closer we can get. For some, the bond goes beyond friendship. They become partners. And when a dog and a person communicate as a team, amazing things can happen. Almost nowhere has there been a more powerful demonstration of this teamwork than in the aftermath of one of the greatest tragedies in recent history. Captain Scott Shields and his 11-year-old search and rescue dog Bear are two of the heroes of 9/11. On that terrible morning, Scott reacted to the crisis by racing to the site of the World Trade Center. Bear and Scott arrived just as the second tower collapsed.
You know, Bear was always at my side. He went on rescue missions with me always. I watched him as the buildings came down. He didn't flinch. And I realized he wasn't scared.
Scott couldn't have known how important Bear was to become to the hundreds of firefighters working there that morning.
We were standing in the middle of a 16-acre debris field, which I don't know if you could really grasp 16 acres of debris. And it was mountainous, just steel and concrete. Not knowing where to start was very frustrating. I didn't have the tools. And then this guy comes up with this dog. And I remember looking around saying, how did he get in here? I mean, how did the dog make it in here? We barely made it in.
Bear led the way. He told Scott and the firefighters where to search.
I just went from one hit of Bear's. If he'd signaled that he'd found somebody, I moved on.
We were just kind of all honed in on Bear and just waiting for Scott to turn to us and say, my dog is making a hit.
Every time he communicated that something was there, he was right.
It gave me a tool that I could work with, and I didn't feel so helpless anymore.
In the days following 9/11, Bear and Scott worked tirelessly, 18 hours a day. The demands went far beyond any search and rescue mission Bear had ever tackled, but he never gave up. Bear's determination led to one of the most personal recoveries for Scott and the firefighters, New York City Fire Department Chief Peter Ganci.
Bear hit on the spot, and Scott was insisting that there was something there. We had dug for 10 minutes or so, and we were coming up with nothing. And Scott continued to insist that Bear has a hit there and that we should keep digging.
Then he pawed the ground with his right foot, and he always used his right foot. And that was his signal for finding something.
And he pulled up a piece of paper, had some blood on it, which was more of an incentive for us to keep digging.
Jon Paul crawled down into a hole. He was the skinniest one.
And I would say we got to about a 6 to 7 foot mark, and we uncovered the chief of the New York City Fire Department, Peter Ganci, which was difficult because that's your leader. I guess you could equate it to a soldier recovering his general on a battlefield. It was difficult to really comprehend.
As days passed, hopes of rescue turned to the challenge of recovery. More and more dog teams joined Bear and Scott. At times, more than 350 of the best search and rescue dogs in the United States and Europe were working at Ground Zero.
There was just no way to find things buried under that ash except to use the dogs.
It took 6 months before Bear's work was done. By the time he left Ground Zero, he had recovered more victims than any other dog. A A year later, Bear died from multiple cancers. His fellow rescue workers knew they had lost a very special friend and hero. He was honored with a New York City Fire Department funeral.
I walked out of the Trade Center that first night with more respect than I'd ever had for him. And I respected him more than anybody that I knew. I knew that I could always count on him. And every few years we need to remember that dogs are man's best friend. And that they talk to us. And they tell us what they need, but they also tell us what we need. And they'll protect us. And sometimes keep us safe.
Search and rescue dogs and their handlers spend years learning how to understand and talk to each other. Thanks to their partnership, thousands of people have been saved.
Get this going and you can start talking now.
After we left TJ, about here, in the area where we found Chief of Department Ganci, he was still digging.
Right, yes.
And Scott, myself, Bear, several other firemen moved on. We found, well, Bear made a hit, I would say right about where the corner of that building is here. I guess within 15, 20 minutes of digging that area, we came across, I believe, a civilian. And then about another 100 feet, 200 feet past there, Bear made another hit, and I left them, the guys were still digging, and I came back here, and that's
how soon
when we
after you
uncovered
come back did
Chief Ganci.
I call for a fireman?
That was within a minute. Yeah. I mean, when I came back, in fact, I walked over and I asked you how things were going, and then within a minute you said, "Give me a hand."
Right. And you.
But Bear was making some good hits all along here.
And what time do you think this was? I got here at 11. I'm taking a good question.
I don't know, Scott.
I have no sense of time.
My time is.
I only found out the other day what time 7 went down, and I thought it was early morning.
No, it was 4:30 in the afternoon.
Time has had no comprehension of a sequence and at what hours things were happening.
Well, taking a good guess, I probably ran into you over on VZ and West, probably somewheres around no later than 2 o'clock. And then that's when we came through all the buildings and worked our way back out.
I would guesstimate around 3:30 or so.
It was when
we were over
Chief
here.
Ganci was found.
Yeah, about 3:30.
Gave us the area to work with. So that was the first day. That was I didn't see any other dogs on the site. That was you and Bear. So
the epitome of man's best friend.
There you go. Yep.
Bear's effort in one particular area of rubble led to a sad recovery. New York City Fire Chief Peter Ganci.
He was hitting upon pieces of paper that were over the area with blood on it and then scenting down below that there was somebody down there. We found him in the area against the American Express building, underneath a fence and some other things.
How much credit do you give Bear in helping you find your chief?
All of it.
Firefighter Jon Augier was the first to reach Ganci. He only knew he'd found his chief after looking through a wallet near the body. He's still amazed the canine of Bear's age could arrive on the scene so quickly with such determination.
To see this dog climb up and over some of these pieces of steel and crushed concrete, Bear was phenomenal. I wanted to keep the dog with me as long as I could, but there are too many other firemen trying to latch on.
Tell me the circumstances of how you were brought to the scene. Who called you and how did you get to the scene?
We were dispatched to the scene, engine 35.
Right out of here, or out of the one down there?
Right.
Okay, and you've been at the same place for 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, 2 of the years I rotated out.
Okay, so you get down to the scene, you just, what did you say? You said you saw it. It was pretty amazing.
We arrived
what you saw down there.
a minute or two after the second collapse. I mean, I'm sorry, a minute or two before the second collapse.
Okay.
I guess we were about 8 blocks away.
And you said something about the size of the debris field. What did it look like?
The debris field, it looked like the moon. It was like being on the moon. It was a completely different world.
you said
and
the size was like 16.
You couldn't see the other end. And it was 16 acres large. I mean, we found that out after the fact. It was a tremendous debris field.
So when did you meet Bear and Scott? How did that come about?
That was later on in the day. I'd have to guesstimate, I guess, around between 1 and 3 p.m. And I stumbled across him and another firefighter friend of mine, T.J. Mundy, between those times.
Yeah. Now, what did how did you use his services? How did he help you?
Like I said, the debris field was so large that it was like trying to find a needle in a haystack to try to make recoveries and rescues. So
really, that's all I want to get a sense of is, what did this guy help you do with Bear? How did he help you find your feet? Talk about that, and that's it. So you saw Scott, you saw Bear, and then what did these guys do? What did they do to help you to find your chief?
This gentleman, Scott, was directing his dog around the debris field with us, which was amazing in itself. For one, to see a dog there so quickly, and two, to see this dog climb up and over some of these pieces of steel and crushed concrete. But the dog had his nose buried down in there and was working hard. The dog was out there working as hard as we were.
What were the circumstances of finding the chief? How did that happen? What did the dog do?
The dog kind of hits on an area. He circles it a little bit. He'll sit down, and I don't know anything about searching with dogs. I was really relying on Scott Shields to direct the dog, and Scott says he's hit a spot. He's got a spot, something here. My friend T.J. Mundy, firefighter Mundy, had asked if he was sure. He said, I'm positive this is the spot. It's definitely a hot area. So we left Fireman Mundy there. I moved on with Scott and Bear. We moved about 100 yards away, and Bear hit on another spot, which we were able to make a recovery within 3-4 minutes of that hit.
Really? Now, how much credit do you give Bear in helping you find your chief?
All of it. We would have found him, regardless, like every one of the firemen there. But we never would have found him that quick. And I mean, it was by chance that it happened to be Ganci, but
how's our audio, bud? Okay, fine. I just want a couple other things and we'll be done here. You don't work with these dogs all the time either, so just for the viewer who doesn't work with these kind of dogs at all, obviously, and doesn't know much about them, just give us a sense of how important they were to the overall scheme of things, what was going on down there that day. How much did they help you guys in trying to accomplish your goal of getting these guys recovered?
Well, in the aftermath, I think the dogs played a pretty key role in recoveries because of their sense of smell and their abilities to locate bodies. Because, like I said, the debris field was so large. Where do you start? You just didn't know where to start, and they were the answer. They gave us that answer. The dogs pretty much looked at us and said, this is where you're going to start, and that's what we went with. But Bear was phenomenal. I wanted to keep the dog with me as long as I could, but there were too many other firemen trying to latch on, and Scott too. There's a guy, I'm not too sure how old Scott is. He's a few years older than me, and he beat up.
He was banging away out there.
Yeah, he was beat up, but the man was going strong. And
the dog's pretty old too. He's like an 11-year-old dog.
Most of us stayed down there. We were there every day for weeks. And I passed Scott many times through a 2-week period thereafter. So.
The only other thing I wanted to ask you then is just, you found the dog helped find your chief, and the dog was definitely involved with stuff that was going on down there. Did you see other civilian people like Scott with dogs, or the mostly official, search and rescue kind of dogs and animals you saw down there? Or that's something you didn't really pay much attention to?
In all honesty, I didn't know if Scott was a civilian. I didn't know if Scott was a civil servant, trained professional.
But you didn't really care.
I believe I saw he had his marina patches on. He did some work with different marinas, I think some SAR units or something. But it didn't matter at that point. And that was the only dog that I saw that day, and so quickly. And after the first recovery, I was sold. I didn't know if the dog was fine in my book.
We're going to get a shot of you and I talking. You did great.